Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hillary Ritt, and I'm the Workforce and Adult Services Consultant at the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. And so I want to welcome you here today to the webinar, Reentry Toolkits, One Way to Support People Impacted by Incarceration. Emily Steele will be presenting, and she is the Adult and Digital Services Librarian at the McCracken County Public Library. They are well represented here today. So I'm so glad that Emily agreed to present this. And I am going to drop in the chat here just a second information about how to, we do have a live captioner, but also, and Emily's got her slides up already. I'm just going to drop here in the chat on how to access captioning if you just are joining us. And we do have live captioning available, and then you also want to use the stream text service that is available as well. And so without further ado, if Emily's ready, I'm going to turn it over to her. Lauren,
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Lauren McCracken County is saying she doesn't have any sound. So if you, Lauren, let me, if you click in the bottom in the purple button and click on the settings, try to see if you can get some sound that way, kind of do your session settings. If that doesn't work, let us know in the chat, or you can also try calling in on the phone. Thank you, Emily, for your patience here. Don't hesitate, Lauren, to let us know if that still's not working. And just text us in the chat, and I'll turn it over to you, Emily.
Okay. Well, as she said, I'm the Adult and Digital Services Librarian at McCracken County. We're in Paducah. A few years ago, it feels like a few years ago, because it's about a year and a half ago, I was working on a grant with my former coworker, Leslie Garrett, who has moved on to another library. And we were thinking about something we could do as a new service. I think that she was the one who came up with the idea of reentry toolkits. Sorry, that is my office mate's phone if you heard that. Leslie, as I said, has moved on to another library, so she couldn't be here today because they put her on our schedule to train. So this is something that Leslie put in. If you have a hard time seeing it, I think everyone's going to get the slides later, but basically this circle is everyone who is incarcerated, and then showing the breakdown of all the different places. And another part of the slide is she has some different examples of things that academic and public libraries are already doing to provide service to the reentry population. And then down at the very bottom, there is a citation for an article that she thought it would be really good. And the last slide has two articles as well. I think actually this one might be on this last slide. But this shows that there are a lot of different kinds of prisons, and then there are people in who are not even convicted of anything yet because they're still waiting for the trials, and there's quite a variety of different situations going on. We got the American Dream Literacy Initiative grant, and it was put out by the ALA and the Dollar General Literacy Foundation. One of the focuses is on literacy, but they've got a pretty wide variety of things they consider to fall under that. And one of them is job training, adult literacy, and computer access and training. So we've got the computer access and training is covered by this reentry kit that we're going to describe more in a couple of slides. And also it can go under job training as well, because a couple of our classes that we have added onto this are about how to find jobs and how to apply to jobs. The award was $5,000. We went a little bit over that. The prices were going up and down because of the supply chain issues. So we thought at first we'd have 5, and then we thought we'd have 4. And then we were coming up under with 4 different toolkits. So we went to 5 toolkits, and we went a little bit over 5,000. So our library picked up some of that. Some of the requirements of the grant were there were 4 or 5 webinars that I had to attend, and we all have to do the project outcome participation. If you haven't used that yet, you probably have. It's the ALA grant survey service. So far, we have not gotten any of our surveys back. I printed them out and I'm putting them in the toolkits, but they're not coming back. I'm considering putting a link to virtual survey to see if they filled that out any better. One of the other requirements was to have a few community partners. For us, one of ours is the West Kentucky Reentry Council. I think every region has a reentry council, and we've been attending meetings for a while now. We meet once a month, and there are several different service organizations that are there. There are people there who work with folks trying to get GEDs, people trying to get housing, people dealing with addiction, all these different people who sometimes work the reentry population. And we get together and just talk about different services and bounce ideas off of each other. It's really good. It's convened by the Career Services. We're pretty lucky at McCracken County. We're actually on the same street as our Career Services. So when ours start going back to being in-person meetings, all I have to do is walk a few buildings down. We use the Reentry Council to promote the program. Every few meetings, I just make sure everybody knows about the reentry program, or they'll ask me how it's going. And I've sent out the flyers to them. So when I send out the flyers to the Reentry Council, it gets distributed amongst many different organizations. Our second community partner was the United Way. We haven't been able to work with them as much because they had a program that they were starting up. COVID happened and stopped it. So I need to get in touch with them sometime and get this going again. But they have allowed us to use some information that they have put together in our KITS resource guides, and they have been promoting our program to their users. Okay, so to get started with this, we already had an existing digital toolboxes program that had been going on. I'm not really sure how long, because it's before I got here, but it had been going on close to 3 years, I think, when we started the reentry kit. And that is a really popular program. There's always a waiting list for it. People really love it. We also, like I said, we had the long-standing outreach work with the Reentry Council and also with local recovery centers. And we identified the need for phone services. When we were closed due to COVID, we found out we had a lot of people who are dependent on our community access phone than we realized. We have a phone in one of our lobbies where people can make free 10-minute calls, and people really hated being cut off from that. So the existing digital toolboxes that we had before this, it's very similar, but they have a laptop, a hotspot, a mouse, a flash drive, and a carrying case. And they were checking out for 3 months at a time. We are in the process of changing that to being 1 month at a time. And that was already in place pre-pandemic. And this is the reentry kit. And the main difference is that we have added a flip phone. Another difference is we have a resource guide. As I mentioned, it has information from Goodwill, and it also has information from our state reentry. I can't remember what they call it, some kind of Department of Reentry Services. They have online on the Kentucky, I think, Department of Justice website. They have links, and I'm pretty sure every county in the state already has one set up. So it's a ton of information about different community or services that are in your county, and they'll already have the address and the phone number and everything like that. So putting together the resource book turned out to actually be pretty easy. The phone, as I said, is the main difference. We have not before, at least since I've been working here, have had checkout phones. It has been a little bit of a learning curve. Right now we're using a Verizon phone, and I found out after we got started that the cost of the phone and the activation were waived because we're a government organization. So that is why we were able to go from 4 to 5 kits. It's called a Dura XV Extreme. It's got a camera. It's a pretty chunky, sturdy phone. It covers text and voice for $30 a month, and those are unlimited. But we found out that these flip phones can do internet now. You can get online and you can burn through all of the data that's available through a $30 a month plan really fast. You can get on there and get on Facebook. You can watch videos. So that is something that we're keeping an eye on. So we're considering if do we need to keep the existing plans or drop the phones entirely or just go to a slightly higher plan. So far, we've only had one person burn through the data, but it happened really fast. So, like I said, we're still figuring this one out. But the users do like having the phones, and they I know for at least a couple of people have been really, really important and really useful. So there's that. This is all the software that's on the computer. We've got the usual Word programs. NetNanny is a filtering service. Deep freeze. With that, it kind of makes an image of the computer, everything that we have downloaded, all the settings that we have set, and it freezes it like that. And then when the users use it, whatever they download or save or change, when they turn the computer off and turn it back on, it's back the way we set it. So that is why we give everybody a flash drive. So we tell them, if you're working on something, you gotta save it, because if you just save it to the desktop, it's going to go away. But then they don't have to worry about crashing it because they've downloaded their own software. We put Adobe PDF Reader on all of them. They all come with Edge, and we add Firefox and Chrome. And we have one called Absolute for security. If one of them gets lost or stolen, if someone fills out a police report, we can start to search for it through this. And that has come up a couple of times with the other digital toolkits, and I think that we might have to use it on one of the reentry kits soon. This is some information that we put in the resource kit. I already mentioned that we have got the McCracken County Resource Guide, and it's the Kentucky Division of Reentry Services. All of that was on their website, free to download, so we just downloaded the whole thing, printed out. There's information in there about library services to make sure that they know what they can get here when we're open, how to contact us. And I put something together about how to use how to use the laptop, how to use a flash drive, how to use a hotspot, and how to get more help from us. When we were originally planning this, my original thought was that I would have people come in and make an appointment with me, and I would actually sit down with them and walk them through this. And then I realized that if they don't have an easy way to get here, or if they're trying to find a job and they don't want to tie themselves down to an appointment when they're trying to get interviews, I realized that thing that was supposed to be really helpful might actually be a burden. So I've tried to think of as many of the questions that people might have and answer them before they get started, and get all written down and put it all in the resource book. So I'm hoping that's helping. I have not been getting many questions, except if somehow the hotspot has gotten turned off and has to be reactivated. That has happened a couple of times. We have a few brochures from some other local service organizations. I'm pretty sure that Legal Aid is there, and a couple of things like that. And then the other part of the information included are links on the desktop of the laptops. We have been recording our digital skills classes while we were closed down, and then while we weren't doing in person. And so we've got a pretty good collection now on YouTube of different digital skills classes. And I put some of the links onto the desktop, so as soon as they open it up, they'll see all these different classes they can watch for free. So we've got some of the basic digital skills classes and also the job hunting. We're Grow with Google partners, so we've got one called Power Your Job Search, and then I have a PowerPoint on one of the other ones that walks through some everyday tools for digital skills or something like that. Then on our website, we have a digital skills checklist that people can go from like easy stuff on digitallearn.org about this is a computer, this is a flash drive, and then it goes through to some of the more advanced classes about getting around in an email, how to send an attachment, and things like that. So promoting these, it was a little bit different when we were doing this. It was during the surge last summer. So we had to let every Dollar General store in the area know that we won the grant. And I was not about to go around all those stores because I wasn't going in anywhere. So I made a flyer and I wrote a letter and I sent it to 8 different Dollar General stores, and that's just in our county. A couple of them came back, but I think they must have gotten the word out pretty well. So we made the half-page flyers because I was hoping that they might put up by their registers, and we sent them out to some other local agencies. And the grant gave us a press kit. There were press releases that we could just fill in our name and stuff, and we sent that out to the local media. We made some flyers to take to the local jail, and at least one person has come in that found out about it from that. Then we were interviewed by a programming librarian, and another newspaper in our area that we hadn't sent the press release to saw that, and he contacted us and did an interview, so that was in another paper. And we've put up some flyers in-house at the adult services desks, and that has got a few people who didn't know about it, and they were asking us something and they saw that, or sometimes a staff member asked them if they know about it. I was a little bit worried when we were starting this that people might not want to self-identify as being just as involved, but so far that hasn't really been an issue. I think part of it might be that we're very close to the local jail. Sometimes people come out and they come right to us, so we already knew that we had those people on our patrons. That's part of the reason why we wanted to do this for them. I already mentioned the supply chain issues. I think you probably already know that there were issues with everyone trying to get computers. It's really hard because I would find something that we wanted at a good price. Then by the time I just got someone say, yeah, get that one, that's good, I'd go back and it'd be gone or it'd be higher. So I think that we end up paying $100 more per laptop than what I expected. And then some of the parts are coming in at like odd times. Like we get all the computers and then like something else will come in a month and a half later. So I've had boxes stacked up around my desk for a while. When we decided to get the 5th toolkit, that was a few months later than we got all the others, so that was in the winter. So we ended up having to get a refurbished laptop then, and we had a really long wait on that hotspot because it just took forever for them to get it to us. Of course, by then we were all getting used to the supply chain issues, and at least we had the other 4 cataloged at that time. And the supply chain issues were interfering with the promotion. When I sent out the information to the Dollar General stores and those half-page flyers, it didn't have a start date for when it was all going to start happening because I just couldn't really be sure. We said we would try to get done by autumn, but we really thought it would be summer, and then it ended up being September, I think, the end of September when we got them all cataloged. So if I had guessed and put in August, I would have been way off the date. So I'm glad I didn't put the date on, but it was not great for promotion to not be able to say exactly when. I just said something like coming soon. Since we did this, Patron use has picked up a little bit, but at the beginning it was really slow. And we were surprised because the digital toolbox program that was already in existence, it was really, really long. And the whole list is really long. It's really, really popular. And I thought that 4 to 5 re-entry kits wouldn't be enough. I thought that people would be on a really long list and they'd be frustrated. And then we couldn't get anybody to take one for a while. As I said, we've had some response on flyers at the jail and some from the in-house flyers and library staff referrals, and the last one was word of mouth, so that was great. So it's starting to pick up. We've just begun to get a hold list on them, so that's exciting. I know some of the uses have been people trying to finish online coursework or look for jobs. We don't ask them what they want them for when they're picking them up, but sometimes we just get into a conversation and they mention it. These are some possible issues I thought that we might be looking into about trying to get people to use them more. I did not really know how well we had gotten the word out. I was thinking that if the cases stay down this summer, I might actually go around to some places and take them a flyer, and if we have a kit turned in, show them what it looks like. But now the cases are going up, so I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't really know if people who are interested know how to use this to get a library card. I'm afraid that some people may think that they can't get one because they had a $10 overdue fee from 10 years ago. I think some people might prefer to actually come into the library because we will sit down next to people and walk them through stuff. there's a lot of help that they can get if they're here. Plus, we have the printing, we have fax machines and all that. Also, I don't know if people are able to get to the library. A lot of people who use it are within walking distance, so that's, some people just may not be able to get here, or they can't get here when it's open. So, these are the things I was worried about when we went. I think we went a couple of months before one checked out, and I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. But now that it's going up, I really think that the word of mouth is going to start to take off, so I think that that will help a lot. So this is what I'm looking at going forward. We're going to go ahead and try to continue to raise awareness while hopefully the word of mouth will help, but I will probably try to reach out to people this summer, ask them if they know about this and if they know how people can get a card and how easy it is. We'll be evaluating the phones. I'm pretty sure that in a month or so, some of those plans are going to start to go out. That was something else with the supply chain, not knowing when things were going to get in. Some of these phone lines and hotspots were started, and we could have waited a couple of months, and now we have all these different times when all these different accounts are going to come to you. It's a little confusing. I was thinking about extending the checkout time from 1 to 3 months when I did this slideshow, but as I said, we are changing the other digital toolkit to a 1-month checkout, so I'm not thinking about extending the reentry now. And I'm hoping that we'll get some survey results, because I'd really love some feedback from the users to find out if there's something else that they want or need. So far, nothing on the surveys. Okay, this is my last slide. I know I went through that really fast. I always do. But these are 2 articles that Leslie put forward that she thought were really useful. So, how libraries are providing services for the reentry populations. And then I figure we probably have some questions.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm going to open it up for folks to ask questions, and you can type those questions in the chat. And I actually have a question for you as people are thinking about questions, Emily. And this occurred to me as you were talking about the different timing for the phone plans and maybe the hotspots too. How do you keep track of those plans? So, do you have a spreadsheet, or what makes it easy for you to keep track of those? It sounds like that's a lot to keep track of, if that makes sense.
Well, this I think it's about to get difficult because it's all just about to start changing. I'll have to start keeping track. I have got everything else in a spreadsheet. I don't have all of the dates when we're going to end 1 year and see if I don't know what we need to do to start another one yet. So that's partly me and partly the business office, and I probably need to sit down with them soon, but I think it'll be a spreadsheet. I only have 5 of these, and we have the other person in the library who's doing the digital toolboxes has, I think, 25 toolkits and something like 20 hotspots, so I probably need to find out what he's doing.
Sure. That makes me think of another question now. Were you able to use the same provider, like Verizon or whoever, that you were using for the digital kits?
I think that it's all the same provider. I'm pretty sure it's all the same.
Well, that's good. That would hopefully be less confusion then.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were looking at phones, they let us know pretty early. So I see that we have a question about fees. We don't do overdue fees anymore. If someone can't bring it back, then they'll get billed for it. So far that hasn't happened, and I'm going to have to find out what they do with the other digital toolboxes, but the total cost of the reentry toolkits is $1,000. So I'm going to have to find out. I think that if they bring back like everything but the laptop, they would only have to pay for that. But we don't really have fees. It's just the replacement cost. We went fine free at the beginning of the pandemic, so we're going to have to try to put freezes on how the fines and all that. It has been a big help. So far, I haven't had to bill anyone for one of them, but I think we might be getting to the first one.
And you mentioned the software that you can use to help you track that or locate that device too.
Yeah. With the other digital toolboxes, one of them was found at a pawn shop I know. It's called Absolute, and I don't really know how it works. The technology coordinator puts it on for me, and all I have to do is tell somebody I want to use it. So I've got the easy part of it. I believe that someone has to fill out a police report that it's stolen for us to be able to use the tracker.
Okay. Did
So
your
if
technology?
someone really, I'm sorry, what was
Go
that?
ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, if someone thinks that it's stolen and they find out they've got to report, then they start wanting to look around more because they're afraid that it's going to get found inside their house.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Did your technology coordinator help you research the other type, like the deep freeze and other programs to put on the laptops, or how did you
All
determine
of that was what we already had. We don't have anything new. It's always on the other digital toolkit. And all that was done before I started working here, so I don't really know what that process was like. And I don't think that they had any laptops that checked out before them, but I'm not even sure about that. I started here about 3 years ago.
Sure.
So when I got here, the digital toolbox it was happening. It was really popular. Everybody already really loved it. It really took off, I think, from the beginning. So we were really surprised when the reentry kit didn't.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's not in the reentry kit that you think you would want to add?
So far, nothing has come up. I would like to maybe someday be able to do some classes to go with it or something, but we are doing in-person classes now. I don't really know if the people who have this, they get it and they take it home. I don't know if they're going to come back to take a class. I could put Zoom on it and see if they want to meet on Zoom or something like that. So that's something that we could potentially look into for later, especially if it only stays down to 4 or 5, which I'm not currently looking at making it into a bigger program, but if it does take off, that could become untenable if I had more. For the renewals, if someone has a hold on it, we don't let it renew. I did let someone renew one, and then when he checked it in, he was able to come back in a few days and check out another one, but that was right before we started getting a hold list. So I would let someone renew it if it didn't have a hold. Someone could get a start, but then they would have to know when they checked it out, you might not be able to keep this for the whole semester, and then you're going to have to figure out a way to get to the library or some other computer where you can finish it up. Having something else for students really good for a whole semester could be interesting. Since I'm still working out the kinks of reentry, though, it's not something I think I'd want to try to do anytime soon. For the question about the job fair, I do know that some of the people who get this, they are looking for jobs, and that's part of the reason why they want it. That's part of the reason why they want a phone. They can use this to look for jobs and fill out applications and use the phone to set up appointments for interviews, so that could be something good. I'm not sure if the grant is ongoing. I know that when we were doing our work on our final reports, they were doing some surveys and they were trying to figure out what everyone was doing with it and how it was all going, and they were thinking about doing it again. I think that it has gone on for some time in the past, and maybe they're thinking about every other year, but I haven't heard if they ever made a decision on that. But I would watch for it. It's called the American Dream Grant, and it was a pretty good experience overall, even for a pandemic. I think that if it hadn't been the pandemic, the whole planning process would have gone better because it was hard to concentrate on it. We actually almost gave up on putting the application together and thought about just putting a cork in it for later. And then we ended up getting it finished after all, and then we won it, and we couldn't believe we'd almost just stopped the application because we were just frazzled. That was in the autumn of 2019, so it was just a hard time to try to sit down and plan something out. And then in the spring when we got it, the library was really picking up speed, and we were really busy, and it was yeah, it was kind of hard to get through at that time. I think that if you got it when we're not in a play, it'll actually be a lot easier, hopefully.
I just dropped the link in the chat for the American Dream Literacy Initiative. I think that's the right
Yeah,
grant,
I think
Emily.
that's it.
You mentioned the processes during the pandemic being hard. Was the grant itself, can you talk a little bit about how that process went? Was it hard? What kind of things you had to, I know you shared some about what you had to provide, but.
Yeah, the application was pretty normal. It's the usual kind of thing. We described the project we want to do, what we thought everything would cost, which turned out to be wrong. They were really good with working on us. When I had to contact them, letting them know that we didn't know until almost the end of the thing that the phone costs had been waived. We hadn't heard that from Billings, so they were really good about letting us make changes right at the end so we could get out the kit. So they were good to work with. I thought all the webinars were good. There were 4 or 5 of them, but they were spread out over a pretty long time. So there was an orientation in April, and then I think 2 others in the next May and June, and then a finishing up one towards the end before a final report so that we could go through how we would do that. The hardest part was costs kept changing, and just me realizing that I needed to make some changes in my plans because I was planning for people to come here and have a session with me, and then I realized that's just not going to be tenable for everyone, and that's just complicating it. So writing all the instructions I could think of to put in the resource kit, I had to do that in a hurry, and it wasn't too bad. But really, I've done other grants before, and this is about the usual thing. There wasn't anything terrible in the application or the final report. I think actually the final report was easier to put together than some I've done. And I had a spreadsheet all along the way, so every time a cost changed, I would just go into the spreadsheet and plug in the new number and get different totals. So when the end came, it wasn't terrible to put together the final report.
That's great. That's great practical kind of just the nuts and bolts of it, of how things kind of go, and then the process. And then do you use this project outcome survey?
Oh yeah. And I think that they might have done a whole webinar about that, but I had used it before. It's their survey where you go in and they've practically got a survey already ready for you. You just plug in some of your information, and they let you print it out, which is what I thought would be better for us. But like I said, they're not coming back. I'm thinking about doing the link on the website, or sorry, on the desktop, so they'll see every time they open it up. Please, before you turn this in, do the survey. It's really short. I think ours is 4 questions. And if you do it that way, they'll do a report for you in a spreadsheet. So that's all free.
That's really helpful. And then do you have to report, I think you've talked about this a little bit too, but do you have to report that survey data to the grant, the grantee?
We were supposed to, but I just had to tell them at the end of the grant period we still hadn't had one go out. Or we had one go out, but we hadn't had one come back yet. So I just had to tell them we do not have any surveys, and it wasn't a problem. I think that I might actually have told them before it was even over. We haven't had any go out yet. And then they started to go out right before the final, I want to say the final report was due in January. So they were out, but they weren't due yet. Like right after that was when we started getting them back. And we usually find the survey crumpled up in the bottom of the bag under everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to hear more going out. Do you think, like you said, you mentioned word of mouth. I guess things things open up a little more too, maybe that is helping as well.
Yeah, I think that it might be.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry I'm going through this so fast. Leslie and I kind of went over it together for another one, and now she's not here to slow me down. If I'm left to myself with the slideshow, I'll go through it too, way too fast. I always do that.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you so much for presenting on it. I think you maybe have touched on a little bit of this too, but how are possible ways to connect with the jail staff or the prison staff, ways that maybe other folks that are attending or will watch this later, how that they could possibly either connect with the justice facility in their area or the partners, because you obviously had to do that for your grant, but do you have suggestions for connecting with those partners and how to keep that relationship going?
Well,
So
Leslie was our contact at the jail. She was our bookstore coordinator and our outreach coordinator. So since she's gone, we've got a new one, but I think she's still kind of getting her feet wet, but probably I need to talk with her about that. The jail was really closed down during COVID because they were having a hard time keeping people from getting sick. So we could understand why they didn't want us there. But hopefully, now that our cases are down, it'll be easier for us to get there and just give them a stack of flyers from time to time and just re-up it and just remind them we have this program. Everybody's welcome to do it. If they don't have a card or if they have an old card, they should get in touch because it's probably easier than they think to get a new one. There is information on the flyer actually about what they need to do to get a card if they want to do that online, and how they can put a hold on one online if they don't want to come in and do that. If the cases stay down, I'm thinking about actually just going around to a few places in the summer and just handing them a stack of flyers and maybe showing them a kit and introducing myself and just making sure people know about it. And then if we have an outreach with the jail, we'll use that. And I know we have outreach with some of the other places in town where people are like in halfway housing and things like that. So we'll be able to keep that connection alive through the outreach.
That's great. And developing that partnership and that connection, and then just keeping it. That's been, I think, tough for folks during the pandemic. It's just you're not able to necessarily meet in person, but letting them know you're still there and can still assist folks.
Yeah, I mailed out a bunch of flyers, but then I didn't hear anything back, and I thought, I don't know if that means that they threw it away or they didn't open it or they stuck it on their bulletin board and everybody's looking at it. I have no idea what happened to any of those.
Mm-hmm. Are there, so I know you had supply issues. Are there, how could you recommend for folks if they're looking to get the cases or potentially get phones or laptops? Are there any types of vendors that you could recommend, or that any tips there?
I don't think so. I think with the supply chain, it probably doesn't really matter who you use. I think that for a while it's just going to be luck if you get it fast and not luck if you get it slow. I don't think it really matters who you order from right now. Although it might be getting better now. I'm not sure. Like I said, it was last summer we were ordering most of the stuff in a little bit, like in last December. So everything I think was a little more up in the air then. If someone asks about the difference in the technology kits and the reentry kits, and the main difference is the reentry kits have the phone. And then the other difference is the resource guide with all the information about social services and how to use the computers. They all come with a flash drive. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they all have that. So really from the outside they look the same. They're in the same kind of a bag. They've got the same kind of computers, the same kind of hotspots. So it's just the 2 extra things really in the reentry kit. And I know at least one person who has a reentry kit got it because she was checking her spot on the whole list for the other one. She must have mentioned that she had been recently in jail, and they said, do you know about the reentry one? So she got that one and didn't have to wait so long. She's still on the other hold list, but it's going to be a couple of months before she's on the top of that list to get the other one. We used to also have another one. It was called a skill building kit, and that was a different grant, but it was so similar to the digital toolkit. It was also just available to the general population. Anyone over 18 could get one, and it was a little bit confusing for people. That was when the digital toolkits were 3 months and the skill kits were 1 month. And even with flyers out, people didn't really seem to know the difference in the two. So so far, no one really seems to be confused about this one and the digital toolkit and the reentry kit. Sometimes when we're talking about them to each other, we realize that we are calling it all a digital toolkit, and we need to stop and figure out what we're saying. So it's a little bit confusing for the staff, but I don't think it is for the users.
Yeah. The flash drives, obviously you had a grant for the reentry kits. Are the flash drives, is that a for the other toolkit, the digital toolkits, did you have a grant to provide those flash drives too? And is that
I know that at least some of the digital toolkits were grant kits. I think some of them might not be. They all have a flash drive, so after the grant money runs out, we're just buying those. We get just a big box of them.
Okay.
They have to have one really because of the deep freeze that cleans off the computer between uses. If someone's trying to do a job application, like do a resume, if they're not saving it on something like Google Drive, if they're saving it to documents or desktop, they're going to lose it. So we give them something they can save everything to so that they don't have to worry about losing things. That's something that we tell them when they're checking these out. Have you used them before? Do you know about the flash drives?
Yeah, that's a huge huge thing to make sure that they understand, because all that effort.
Another thing is ask them, do you know how to use a hotspot? Because not everyone has used one. So we make sure before they leave that they know how to use a flash drive and a hotspot. If we have time, we like to get it out and open up the computer, but we can't always do that. Sometimes people are in a hurry. But those two things, a lot of people are repeat users of the digital toolkits especially. So they'll come in and they'll say, yeah, I've had all of this. I know how to do all of this. Sometimes I'll even put in a request. Last time I had one with a different computer. Can I get that one? That's a disaster. We can't do that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I did it once and I was in trouble. It was a huge mess. If people think that their hold has gotten messed up, if they think they've been knocked down on the list or something, they get really upset. They love getting to take those home for a whole month.
Well, folks, please continue to feel free to ask questions. I'm going to put Emily's email address in the chat. So if you think of something that you didn't get to ask today, she has agreed to that she'd be happy to answer any other questions. Also want to remind you that, I don't know, actually, like I said this at the beginning, but the slides that from Emily's presentation today are available in your Blackboard Collaborate course under the PDF and slides in the Blackboard Learn window. So you can download those. They are available there for you. This webinar has been recorded. And certainly I'm not trying to rush this off, but just kind of let you know a few things. So this has been recorded and will be made available to you within a few days. Also want to share a couple of things. Please continue to type in your questions too. But a couple of American Library Association resources that if you're interested in justice involved or folks who have just been involved with the justice system or just coming out, you may be interested in, ALA has a page related to library services for those who have been justice involved, and a listserv. And I kind of messed up the spacing there, but so you can sign up for the listserv if you're interested in that. And you can also visit the webpage. They've got information about the listserv on that webpage. So that's a resource that you can take advantage of too if you're interested in learning more or getting more involved and finding out more about ways to serve those who've been involved in the justice system. Any other questions for Emily? I want to share a survey link too. We would love to hear your feedback on this webinar, and it's anonymous, so you can do that. The survey link will also go out in the follow-up email that you get, but we would love to hear your feedback on this webinar. Yes, thank you, Emily, for presenting on this and for the work you're doing in McCracken County to help not only those who've been involved in the justice system, but everybody in your community. Thank you so much for that. We also, I'm going to, Emily, if it's all right, I'm going to stop sharing your slides and thank the Institute for Museum and Library Services for their support of this webinar and the other programs and resources that we offer at KDLA. So thank you to the Institute Museum and Library Services for sponsoring this webinar. And folks, please don't hesitate if you have any questions that come up. And oh, that's great, Brenna. That's wonderful. This is great feedback. If you have any questions for me, or if you ever just want to reach out to me, I am like I said at the beginning, the adult services and workforce consultant, but I'm here to assist you all in any way that I can, anything related to adult or even outreach resources. And so you're welcome to reach out to me if you've got questions, and be glad to help you. So thank you again, Emily, for presenting this webinar today and for answering our questions. You all asked some great questions, had some really thoughtful questions, so thank you for that. And Emily, anything else you would like to say before?
Nope, just thank everyone for coming.
So glad you presented today. Like I said, the PDF and slides or the PDF of the slides is available on your Blackboard Learn course for this class. Your certificate of attendance will be available in your learner dashboard within a week, and then the recording will be available as well within a few days. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to connect you with someone, or either with Emily or with someone here at KDLA who can help you with any questions you may have. Thank you all again, and I wish you a great day. Thank you again, Emily.
Welcome.
And I'll hang out here for a few minutes in case anybody else has questions. But I'm going to go on and stop recording the webinar.